So as you can see, I've had a haircut. I have to note on it because every commenter is going to be like, oh my god, he had a haircut. Yep. My homeless hairdo is now gone. Now we're going with the grizzly missing hair. Now I'm going to freeze to death in the cold weather because I've got no hair. We've got a lot to talk about. Oh my god. I swear to God, this last week has been insane, and I've seen actually other content creators say the same thing as me, where they're like, why is so much happening in the censorship space so quickly? And I think it's a couple of things. I think, one, a lot of information is coming to light now because of the fact that there's so much more spotlight on the censorship war. We're noticing other things connecting together. There's also the situation with, like, if one Karen group can get one thing removed, well, then another Karen group's more emboldened, and that Karen group's emboldened, and so it's a cascading effect. And then I think also just the coincidence of the UK situation just lined up imperfectly with sync with that, so it just made another escalation. And then you've got the escalating situation of calling out Visa, MasterCard, their stances on it, their hypocritical stances on it. A bunch of other content creators have talked about how Visa came back with a statement saying that they don't believe in, like, monitoring and controlling what people can and can't purchase, but in the same light, as long as it's legal, they say it's fine, but at the same light, they're like, oh, but yeah, but we let people, like, tell us if there's shady practices going on and we'll do something about it. It's like, okay, so a bunch of Karens screeched their lungs off and then got stuff removed. And as I mentioned in my last video, we need to kind of play fire with fire. But then I've had people say in the comments, oh, well, we shouldn't do that. And it's like, okay, well, what do we do? And they end up kind of just loosely going around in a circle going, oh, well, go to our government representative. And they're like, so we've got to go screech to them instead of the companies. So it's like, you're saying screeching to the companies is just going to get them to ignore us, but hey, go screech to the government, they'll do something. And it's like, how about I screech to both? How about that? You can't sit there and cherry pick your points and say, don't screech here, but screech here because screeching's bad. Well, again, they're doing that to both and they're winning. So you're telling us to just not be as effective. Well, no, we need to be as effective as possible and attack as many different avenues as possible. Because it's very clear that the Karen groups seem like the loud voice. And if you're telling people to not say anything because, oh, it might upset the Visa, MasterCard, then they're just going to listen to the louder voice. So it's like, by telling us to not speak out, you're basically telling us to shut up. And by saying, oh, but well, I just said go to the government. So you're telling me to screech to them instead of that. I'm telling to screech to both. Play fire with fire. So again, your points kind of have no weight when you're cherry picking what you want to go with. Now, this tweet has been going around. There's another tweet as well going around, which is this. And I want to do a little bit of digging into this and talk about a couple of things because there are community notes going around basically trying to debunk this. And there is some debunking to it, but there's also some more context to it. So there's one tweet here that talks about it, and then this individual makes a tweet where they're basically saying this is like an old law, which they are actually correct because I looked up the law, and there's more context. Don't jump the gun before it. But this is an old law, the Kids Online Safety Act, which there's the code, 2023, and if you look here, it's right here. But this is where people get confused. Because it's called the Kids Online Safety Act, they don't notice that there's literally another one that's just a different code that got pushed earlier this year. So I wanted to point it out because some people are going around community noting, saying, oh, but this is an old law. Yes, but there's also a new law as well. It's just different codes. Now, I didn't actually check, but I'll check now. What is the code for it? I mean, it's I mean, they both use the same sort of thing for it. So, it's like I said, it's one of those where it's like, maybe that image is from here, because it's pretty much almost, I think, identically the same. But that also being said, like I said, there is an actual bill that was pushed or tried to push, and I think it's still introduced trackers, so it's not like it's just introduced and then stopped. So it might still be somewhat, again, I don't know American government systems as well as I know my own country's, Australia's, but it does seem to be there is still some possibility of it being pushed or someone trying to push it. It might have been introduced and failed, but still, be vigilant. Go to your representatives, speak out to them, screech to them. Not literally. You get what I mean when I say screech. I feel like some people are just going to deliberately not understand what I mean by screeching. But yeah, talk to your representatives, talk to your local council, your government, etc., etc., etc. So that kind of gives a bit of context. So if someone says, oh, that's an old law from 2023, yes, there isn't Kids Online Safety Act from back then, but there's also one that's now. So, or this year. So be vigilant of that, because I've seen some people only bring up that one, but people are going to probably try and use this one as a sort of gotcha. I want to point both out, because it's important to point both out, because, yeah, context matters. Then, I actually missed this in my last video. I was going to talk about the last video. Google is threatening to sue Australia. God, I actually hope every social media app sues the living shit out of our government. I actually genuinely hope it. And it's funny because Albanese got interviewed about this, and he's like, oh, well, you know, I don't really know what to say, but, you know, I'm trying to protect the kids. It's like, yeah, shut up, dipshit. Shut up. What are you going to do? Send the cops to my house? Oh, no, I criticized him. Oh. Again, the government doesn't really care, in my opinion. I think it's all virtual signaling. Do your own research when it comes to this government and the hypocrisy when it comes to certain policies and ways they do things. But I hope. The thing is that annoys me about Google is they didn't really care. They cared at the start, and I said this in the last video. Google cared at the start, then they didn't care because the government was like, oh, well, we'll give them an exemption. They're like, oh, cool, well, we won't care about this law anymore. And then they're like, actually, we might actually block you as well. And they're like, oh, well, now we do care. You should care, period. You should care, period. Again, this doesn't really protect kids in the grand scheme of things. I could go over extensively how blocking kids from the internet does absolutely nothing in the short and the long term, and how this is more just a tool to get your ID verification. And there's already a case, and I will probably get to it at some point, where it's already failed. Wow, I'm a genius. We're right already on that section. So, Discord's new age verification implementation under the UK's visa is failing. Basically, people are trying to use like their facial recognition kind of thing to be like age verification, and apparently it's failing. And then just locking people's ages out, accounts out, because they're like, oh, you don't look old enough, and it's just like, huh? Like, if I shaved and completely, like, this is the thing, like, how old do you think I look? Some of you probably do if you've been around on my channel, but I can guarantee you, I probably am older than what you think I am. Now, I probably am old enough looking to this, but to be honest, with how faulty these systems are, it wouldn't surprise me that it wouldn't just, like, knee-jerk up. And the thing is, and this is the thing, when this law passes in Australia, a lot of Australians are just not going to want to use social media because they're just not going to want to give up their verification and their ID. But there's the issue. It's like, oh, well, maybe it's healthy for people to not use social media as much. There could be an argument for that. But then it comes down to a question of, okay, well, where do you go to get information? Because other than the internet, where else can you go to? Mainstream media? You mean the same mainstream media in Australia that's basically bought and controlled by the government? Yeah, I could go into a long rant about how certain political entities that have retired, that have just gotten powerful positions in the mainstream media, or different powerful corporations. Yeah, there's a long history of that. So yeah, I'm really going to listen to the same mainstream media in Australia that is controlled by ex-politicians that still have allegiance to other politicians that are in power. Yeah, really going to listen to that. The mainstream media has not been biased at all or led misinformation on their own account. Just look at the whole 2020 situation with a certain particular virus and all the misinformation that got spread by our own media and the fear propaganda. So yeah, I'm really going to trust that. So, and I don't like getting too deep into politics here, but this is the point. It's a breaking point now. What, we're just meant to just blindly trust the government? No, I'm not going to. There's also a situation here as well. So, yeah, they're going after non-corn games as well. Not surprised. I really am not surprised at all. This, I think, pretty much was inevitable. And especially with the UK censorship stuff going on, that's pretty much straight away. As soon as they were like, oh, we're doing it to protect the children, straight away started censoring stuff that had nothing to do with it. So it already shows that as soon as you give power to the government, they misuse it. So why should we? And might I also add, I've seen so many, and again, this is not a knock onto Christians in general, but I've seen a lot of these Christian pages that are now suddenly springing up and becoming popular because they're defending the censorship, going, but corn's evil, blah, 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 blah. And they're trying to equate corn with murder now. Yeah. Again, not a knock to all Christians out there, because I've got a lot of Christian friends that are pissed about this. And they are proper, like, actual Christians. Like, they actually follow the Bible correctly. But, well, yeah, some Christians will claim they don't by condoning corn. And it's just like, again, there's a lot of contradictions when it comes to the Bible. I've read it enough times, sadly. But the reality is if you're going to equate corn with murder, you need to get some help and some perspective. Then you've also got the fact that there are some links to individuals pushing for censorship that have links to the World Health Organization. Yeah, this rabbit hole's getting deeper, kids. We're going deep into this. I've been keeping a close eye on this. It's like hourly. It's like something changes every hour. You get one video from like another content creator. It's like an hour later, outdated, more information. And then I kind of liked this. All these Puritan censorship freaks, and just seeing so many young people cheerfully supporting this, that literally blatant government and billionaire corporate overreach is even more bleaker, and the sheer amount of stupidity and ignorance. I agree with this tweet. I just like this tweet, so I wanted to add it at the end. Because there are too many people that are mass defending this censorship, and a lot of it's just like, again, I'm sure there are some people that are coming from a good place from heart where they're like, oh, but we need to protect children. Sure, we should absolutely protect children. But how about parents start parenting instead of parents being lazy and go, well, I want to go to the government to do my job, then don't have kids. If you're too lazy to parent, then you shouldn't have had kids. And if you want the government to do your parenting, then you're a failed parent. And I said that in my last video, and I'll say it again. If that offends you, good. You're a failed parent. You are a failed parent if you need a government to do your parenting because you're incompetent and too lazy to parent. You should have not had kids because you're an incompetent, useless parent. Start doing what you are meant to do. Start parenting. Oh, but we don't want helicopter parents. You don't have to be a helicopter parent. You don't have to sit over their shoulder all the time. But be aware. Be mindful of things. Stay knowledgeable about how things function. We're in a digital age. Most parents should have some idea of how the internet works. Though I say that my mother didn't even know how to use her emails for many years. I had to teach her how to do it. But also, she wasn't stupid enough when I was growing up as a kid to not notice behavioral changes. So unless you've just got an iPad shoved in the kid's face and go, well, I don't want to parent anymore. Well, guess what? You can't use lazy technology now to do your parenting for you. Now you have to ship them off to the government and make them into propaganda machines. Yeah, how great's that going to be? I'm ranting a bit hard here. But I just hate the laziness and stupidity of people in general. And especially the fact that we're now giving too much power to government organizations. Again, I believe in some regulation and some systems, but a government should be there to protect the individuals against corporations and stuff like that in some capacity, but not overreaching to the point where they become a nanny state or a police state or something like that and dictating what is right and wrong. Because these same wrinkly old people that are making these laws are the same people that probably have connections to other people potentially that are on a list. And as I'm just saying, potentially. Maybe some don't, but I bet you there's some high chance that there is some that do. So it's just, I find it really annoying when people really desperately want to defend the censorship. And for the most part, in my YouTube comments, I haven't had anyone defend it. I've seen a lot of defense on other social media platforms. Even Blue Sky's calling this stuff out. Even Reddit's starting to rally. There are actually a couple of Karen groups on Reddit, which is ironic in itself, because you're just going to have it. Yeah. Irrelevant of that, like I've said before in the last video, when Australia, and I think it's later this year, when Australia brings in their age restriction system, it's just going to stop kids from playing games online, period. And because everything is online now, and you can say, oh, this affects you as a content creator. No, because most of my viewership are from adults. Everyone pretty much 18 and above. So I won't be affected from a viewership standpoint, but this just removes the ability for kids to have access to internet, which you kind of need for things like school and stuff. So they're going to have to find weird workarounds for stuff like that. And I'm sure they'll say, oh, but they'll find a way. And I'm like, again, the governments haven't thought this stuff through. This is just a knee-jerk control-y action. And trust me, I still remember the days when our school used to try and ban stuff. They used to try and ban games all the time. And it got to a point where, I think I remember correctly, the kids learned that because they were banning them directly from a website link and it had like a Google link, they used a German search engine to go through it. And they were finding this thing. It's like, again, there's a will, there's a way. You can't control the internet. The best thing you can do is educate kids, be there to, bring wisdom and knowledge to them, and say, like Asmongold's in his video that I watched recently. I know some people don't like him, but again, he has some gems in there. He can be wrong in some points or have some L's, but most of it, he's got some good W's in there. And he brought up the whole point of like being there to enlighten kids on how the real world works. You don't have to throw them in the deep end and be like, oh yeah, look at these massacres going on, a 6-year-old. Whoa, brain broken. No, but you can introduce them to the internet and be there. What I think government should be enforcing is more controls for parents, so that parents can have better monitoring systems. So a parent can be like, hey, I'm going to make this account for you. There are settings in there that are universal settings that I can have that will allow me to restrict some of that content. Say like more mature content. The parents can limit it. Say for a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, and they can have a password lock. And then it's up to the parents how they want to monitor their kids and make sure that they're not watching like mainstream media stuff where it's like massacring heads going flying across the room. Like those extremes. Like you don't want a 6-year-old seeing that kind of stuff. So let the parents to decide and allow for age appropriate labels to be put on content, but not censoring things. Let the individuals, let the parents and stuff decide. But the problem is a lot of parents are computer illiterate, which is really weird because that's just a lack of education, really. At this point, a lot of parents should know how to use the internet. But again, if we have universal systems of like, this is how the settings should work, this is a general layout, a universal layout, then it would make it easier for parents to understand from one social media to the next, the general settings. Because if you go to say like Twitter or to Facebook, and I use an example like that, or even Discord or YouTube, the settings are all different. And to be honest, I've tried to use YouTube settings before when it comes to like sifting through like features. It's a complete mess because it's just like features built on features and it's all just clunky and annoying and convoluted. There needs to be a simplification of making things easier for parents to understand. And I think that's what some of it comes down to. So I think there are better solutions to protect kids from bad stuff on the internet by putting laws in place that don't control direct, and it isn't like some dictator like government and social media control, but allowing individuals and parents to help monitor what kids are looking at, so that if they are going into something extremely concerning, then the parent knows they can sit down with the kid and say, hey, what you saw here is really inappropriate and let's explain it. Again, parents need to parent like the old days. But apparently, I think parents have gotten too content with letting social media control their kids and fill their kids with stuff and not doing it so. And you say, well, isn't that kind of... It's like, again, I don't think the issue is so much social media and so much... There are issues with social media, but that's a whole different video. I don't want to go on a tangent, but I think the fundamental issue right now is that parents are getting lazy and they're trying to offset their responsibilities to a government, and the government are exploiting that. There was a video that Asmongold was watching where it was like this parent was going on about her kid dying and she equated it to like corn. And she's like, oh yeah, my kid watched corn and then he died. And it was just like, what? How did these two correlate? And she wouldn't even, she's like, oh, I don't really want to go into the story of my child's death. And it's like, so clearly there's something sinister. It's like propaganda. It's like they just paid a woman to say, yep, my kid died. Look at this sad photo. Oh, sad. It's like, okay, sure, if your kid died, that's sad. But it's like, how do we go from kid died, corn? Where's the correlation? Don't want to tell a story? Then it's probably made up. It's like, and this is the thing, and I paused the video when I was watching it, and I sat there and I said, I bet you this is parents that have not parented, they've not cared about their kids, the kids have become dysfunctional, the parents just don't give a shit, because they're like, oh, well, you know, life's too hard for me, so I'm just not going to be there for my kids. The kid then ends up dying, sadly, and then they just go, well, I'm a bad parent, but I don't want to take personal responsibility, so I'm going to blame social media and make the government do something about it, so I can null and void my guilt. This is why I get angry. And you may think I'm going a bit like deep on that, but I've seen so many cases of like parents just not parenting, and then when they fail as a parent because they're being lazy, they then just blame someone else because they don't want to take any personal responsibility. I'm not saying that to all parents out there. There is a lot of parents, and I've met a lot of parents that have approached me because they know that I do YouTube, and they say, hey, you know, my kid kind of wants to do YouTube. How do I protect them? And I explain the systems and the settings within YouTube systems of how to protect them. And they're like, oh, wow, we can really do that. I'm like, yeah, you can do this, 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 and this. And they're like, well, that's great. That means they can do this. They can enjoy doing that on YouTube. And they don't have to be exposed to this bad stuff. And I'm like, exactly. Give tools to the people, not to the government. 20-minute long rant. I'm done. Go away. Now I gotta hope my hair grows back for the next video. If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.